Strong emotions this week in Texas after a jury found 19-year-old Karmelo Anthony guilty of murder in the stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. Anthony was sentenced to 35 years in prison.
Most people think they know what a victim looks like. Someone dies and the story writes itself. The one who lived must be the aggressor. But the law doesn't work like that, and reality rarely fits the headlines. In Texas, assault isn't split into assault and battery as in most states. It's one offense, and it begins the moment someone threatens you with imminent harm, even before they touch you. So when Austin Metcalf approached Karmelo with aggression, intimidation, and then physical contact, he wasn't just talking. Under Texas law, he had already committed assault. And that matters because self defense doesn't begin after you're hurt. It begins the moment someone unlawfully puts you in danger. But here's the part someone don't want to talk about. That does not erase accountability. The public often flips the script because the deceased can't speak for themselves. Sympathy replaces analysis. But the law is supposed to look at causation, not emotion. If you start a confrontation, escalate it, ignore a clear warning, and make physical contact, you own the consequences, even if the outcome is tragic. Carmelo didn't chase Austin. He didn't corner him. He didn't initiate the threat. He responded to it with a pocket knife he was legally allowed to carry. A 3.5-inch pocket knife isn't a murder weapon. It's a tool, like a hammer, just like someone's hands. Any object becomes dangerous depending on how the situation unfolds. Carmela warned him, touch me and see what happens. That's not a threat to kill. That's a boundary, a line in the sand. Austin crossed it. And when a larger, aggressive person leans in, closes the distance, and makes physical contact, the risk of serious harm skyrockets. People forget that size, posture, and momentum can turn even a small blade into a fatal injury, especially when the aggressor creates the angle themselves. Austin didn't deserve to die, but he did create the danger that led to his death. And that makes Camilla legally and logically the one defending himself. But the media rarely tells the story this way because the survivor is a villain. It is an easier headline than the deceased initiated the crime. It's uncomfortable to say a person who died was also the aggressor. But uncomfortable truths are still truths. So today, we are asking the question the headlines won't. Who is the real victim here? The person who died or the person who was attacked? Now let's hear what others think.
Carmelo Anthony has been sentenced to 35 years in prison for the stabbing death of Austin Metcalf at a high school track meet. This is why Black people don't trust the criminal justice system. Let me explain. Carmelo was a 17-year-old high school student with a 3.7 GPA, captain of his track team, and no criminal record, who worked at a Foot Locker and H-E-B grocery store after school. Carmelo was sitting in a tent in a track meet last year when Austin Metcalf, a white kid, approached him and told him to leave. Carmelo was 5'11", and only 160 pounds. Metcalf, the white teen, was 6 feet, 225 pounds. Words were exchanged. Metcalf made physical contact. Carmelo said he felt his life was in danger and stabbed Metcalf to defend himself. He used a simple pocket knife he was legally allowed to carry. I'm not here to convince you that he's innocent or guilty. But whether you believe Carmelo or not, the legal process was stacked against him. Carmelo was 17 but tried as an adult. All qualified Black jurors for the trial were struck by the prosecution. Carmelo's lawyers objected, and the judge, a white Republican who calls himself a conservative, overruled them. Then the jury, with no Black members, deliberated less than 3 hours, found Carmelo guilty, and sentenced him to 35 years in prison. They rejected Karmelo's claim to self-defense, but self-defense works just fine in other cases, as long as the person doing the defending isn't black. South Carolina store owner Rick Chow was found not guilty for killing 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack Belton. George Zimmerman was found not guilty for murdering 17-year-old Trayvon Martin in Florida. And Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty for shooting 2 people at a Black Lives Matter protest in Wisconsin. Now compare prison sentences. Karmelo, a high school teenager, got 35 years in prison. Roy Oliver, who shot 15-year-old Jordan Edwards, got only 15 years. Aaron Dean, who shot Tatiana Jefferson, got less than 12 years for manslaughter. And Amber Geiger, who shot and killed Botham Jean, got just 10 years. All those cases were decided by Texas courts in cases where white people killed black people. When they kill us, they come up with all kinds of reasons and excuses to justify and minimize their crime. But when we defend ourselves, they throw the book at us. This is why we say Black Lives Matter, not as a hashtag, as a demand. A rich white billionaire convicted of 34 felonies who never spent a day in jail gets to live in the White House and pretend he is the world's biggest victim of weaponization in the justice system. But a black teenager with a stellar record as a student athlete is thrown into prison for nearly twice the number of years he's been alive, and they call it justice.
Video of the woman named T describing what really happened that day with Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. Watch this.
Karmelo Anthony, my name is T, and when I went to see the video, they ask if you want to see it from either 2 minutes before the stabbing or 11 minutes before. So I chose 11 minutes. From the moment she pressed play, Karmelo Anthony was already sitting up underneath that canopy, and he was sitting there for at least 8 to 9.5 minutes. You see, well, I saw a boy in a black hoodie go over to him first, and then they left out of the tent, and then you see coming across the field was another 6 boys. When they got to the bleachers, one, he went out of frame, and the other one sat at the bottom. But the remaining 4, they went directly to Karmelo Anthony, and like T said before, it was a brief conversation, and then all you see is commotion. And we know from the interviews that Hunter did, we know that Hunter was, in fact, up underneath that tent. The next thing you see, you can see Karmelo in the midst of them assaulting him. You can see Karmelo trying to back out, but he gets pulled back forward. The next thing you see is Karmelo, he comes shooting out the back, but he's still not standing. And he had to like kind of crab crawl backwards, and he had to like jerk away from them because they still had a hold of his hoodie. He goes up a couple bleachers and he's looking around for which way to go. He runs diagonally down the bleachers and then he falls. At the time of him falling, that's when I noticed another 3 boys coming down the bleachers chasing after him. But once Karmelo got up, he took off. You didn't see him for the rest of the video.
And this is the second video I've seen of a witness who watched that video and saw that Karmelo Anthony was defending himself. No question about it. So why the fuck didn't his defense bring this evidence to court? That's how you know his defense is in on the setup. And then Secret Service Sam said that he got a hold of an email from some cheerleaders who emailed their coach about an incident that happened after a football game that they lost. They were at a Canes, and one of the Metcalf boys, I can't remember if it was Hunter or Austin, one of them called the cheerleader a fat bitch because she was talking about what happened in the game, how they lost. Called her a fat bitch, and then said that his hands were bisexual, pretty much saying that he fights men and women and that they feared for their lives, and to keep her name anonymous because she didn't want them to retaliate against her for telling. So these little white boys have a history of being violent, but everybody's trying to cover up and make it seem like they ain't a bunch of bullies. But trust and believe, we're not letting this shit go. We're going to make sure we get justice for Karmelo Anthony.
Is intentionally doing dishonest reporting about what is going on in the trial of Karmelo Anthony. They're conveniently not going into the details and the inconsistencies in the witness's testimony, but luckily I was able to find somebody on Reddit who was actually detailing what each of the witnesses were testifying to. So allow me to paint you the picture of what I believe actually happened. I went through each of the witnesses' testimonies, and it's very clear that not everybody had a clear picture of what happened. So on the day of the stabbing, it started pouring down rain, which caused a delay in the track meet. Very common for athletes early, and each of the schools seemingly brought their own tents and set them up so that people could sit underneath them. Carmelo's coach testified that they did not have a tent, that it was actually coming later with a second bus, and they didn't have enough students to justify bringing a tent at that moment, so they didn't have a place to shelter from the rain. Anthony apparently was friends with one of the kids from the tent. Several people saw he and Anthony dap up, greeting each other, and seemingly Karmelo Anthony, while he was in the tent, made some joke about "y'all are ass," referring to their football team. The friend, who weirdly enough denied kind of how close his relationship was with Karmelo Anthony, said that it was a joke. And by the way, Karmelo Anthony is not only the captain of the track team, but he was also captain of the football team. His senior year had been cut short because he had had an injury, a very severe one, and his shoulder was messed up. He had to wear a sling for part of the year. They also don't mention that Karmelo Anthony was already in the tent before the Metcalf twins entered it. It wasn't until the Metcalf twins came to the tent that they seemed to be the ones who had a problem with him being there. And it's pretty inconsistent across the 9 witnesses from the incident about where Austin's brother even was during this. Some said that he was right next to his brother. Some said that he was in the back of the tent. Some said that he was a couple bleachers down. Witness said that they heard Anthony say, "I'm a nobody," when students were asking why he was under their tent. And there doesn't seem to be any consistency on what the words Anthony was saying. And while they're trying to say that Anthony is the aggressor, the person that he was in there seeing literally thought it was funny, and he took out his phone and pretended to record it. I personally don't believe that. No teenager just pretends to record things, especially since one of the witnesses said that after the incident, students were passing around a phone and looking at Anthony's Instagram page, which doesn't make sense. You wouldn't just pass the phone around. You would just ask for the handle and you would go to his Instagram page. What I think they were passing around was the video. I think there was a video and they deleted it because it would have looked bad on Austin. I say that because this person that Anthony was talking to didn't step up and say to the guys, "Hey, he's with me. We're just hanging out talking." And Karmelo's lawyer had to show a bunch of photos of the two together hanging out. They even hang out 3 times in a 3-week period. So they knew each other pretty well. It's clear that Austin specifically did not want Anthony in the tent and was ganging up on him. I think they all were, because both Anthony and Metcalf were frustrated and escalated, according to one of the witnesses. And mind you, there is no policy that these kids can't be in each other's tent. And in fact, there are supposed to be coaches at every tent because it's a bunch of teenagers have nothing to do. So where was the adults, in my opinion? And it didn't start out as a big deal because Austin Metcalf sat down on the bleacher in front of Anthony, which sounds honestly aggressive. He came in, he started antagonizing him, he sat down next to him, they started calling each other bitches. And nobody is consistent with the shoving part. Some say it was a small one-handed shove. Another witness said, and I believe this is the true story, that there was minor pushing for a couple of minutes, that both Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony were angry and aggressive. Several witnesses say that they didn't believe Anthony when he was bluffing, that Metcalf and Anthony were frustrated and it escalated, and some called the shove a nudge. And one of the witnesses, turns out, told the cops that Anthony had told a joke and that Metcalf had pushed on Anthony in a lineman move, which is an inward and upward motion. Some of the witnesses said that both of the Metcalf brothers were ganging up on Anthony. And I think these kids have a very skewed perspective of what defending them was, because they said that Anthony said, "You're not going to move me. You're a..." The witness told the jurors Austin was defending us. That's not defending you. I think y'all went through a very traumatic effect, and you can't come to terms with the fact that I think your friend was the aggressor. But you can't say that he deserved it. So obviously this guy has to be the perpetrator. It has to be his fault. It has to be a murder. Some of the kids were giving different statements to the police last year, right after it happened, like not mentioning the cursing. Another witness characterized Austin's putting his hands on Karmelo as a warning. The witnesses across the board all pretty much agreed that this lasted 4 to 6 minutes. If someone is harassing you for 4 to 6 minutes, as a woman, I too would be grabbing my backpack and unfolding the blade in there because things were progressing. This witness said that Austin Metcalf tried to force Anthony out. After Metcalf put his hands on him, that's when he got stabbed. If this had been an actual problem and not just a couple of kids bullying the black kid they didn't know under their tent, then they would have gone and gotten an adult that should have fucking been there to begin with. And that is very obvious on cross-examination of a witness when the lawyer said if Anthony and a friend were outside of the tent, what was wrong with that? And the witness, who was also on the football team and was part of this little group, said it was because of the proximity to the tent. But every witness who saw the stabbing stabbing said that Karmelo was sitting on the bleachers and that Metcalf was standing up and pushing him. Anthony never got out of his seat. And not only that, the wound and the blade prove that he did not even try to stab him. He just held it out and Austin went on the blade. You know how I know this? Because the blade itself is 3.5 inches long. Everyone said that Austin leaned in to push him and Karmelo stabbed him. There's no dispute about that. Anthony was sitting, Austin was standing over him, getting ready to shove him, and he goes into the blade. So if the blade was 3.5 inches and the wound was 2 inches deep, people, what does that mean? It means he could not have stabbed at him as Austin was leaning in to shove him. Austin had to have been the one who fell on the blade. I'm sorry, but it seems pretty obvious to me. Like, this is self-defense. How could Anthony be the aggressor if he never fucking moved from his seat? It is literally stand your ground. And all of this could have been avoided if he had just minded his own business or gotten his coach. And the prosecutor kind of proves my point when he asked the doctor if there were any defensive wounds on Austin, and there were none. He already had his hands out to push him. He crossed that physical boundary and fell on that knife. There is never a situation when a person is sitting down and a person is standing up, physically impeding you, that person is not the aggressor. And if this was the opposite, this wouldn't have even been a trial. I have a feeling the defense is going to tell us that there is a documented history of aggression with Austin. Let's face it, the prosecution is resting on racism in this case. That's exactly why they struck all of the black jurors. They are just hoping that they will just gloss over all the inconsistencies in this story, because not a single person out of the 9 witnesses that were there had a consistent story. And that's what the media is not telling you.
This is the jury for the Karmelo Anthony case. You cannot sit here and tell me that they didn't just pick the pastiest of pasty white people for this case, of course. And not only did they convict him guilty, they found him guilty of murder, which was the highest charge in here. They could have done manslaughter. They could have chosen a bunch of different things to charge him with, but they really went with the highest possible charge, which is life in prison. And again, look at these people, bro. These are the type of people to cross the street when they fucking see you. The type of people to clutch their purse. The type of people to start fucking, just looking at you a certain type of way just from being, brown. And, bro, it's another fucking unjust moment of bullshit in the United States, bro. And I don't know, bro. I don't know when the fuck it's gonna change, but this is too close to the last one. This is the jury for the Karmelo Anthony case. You cannot sit here and tell me that they didn't just pick the pastiest of pasty white people for this case, of course. And not only did they convict him guilty, they found him guilty of murder, which was the highest charge in here. They could have done manslaughter. They could have chosen a bunch of different things to charge him with, but they really went with the highest possible charge, which is life in prison. And again, look at these people, bro. These are the type of people to cross the street when they fucking see you. The type of people to clutch their purse. The type of people to start fucking, just looking at you a certain type of way just from being, brown. And, bro, it's another fucking unjust moment of bullshit in the United States, bro. And I don't know, bro. I don't know when the fuck it's gonna change, but this is too close to the last one.
Reasonable V20. Tried to frame it as this 1v20, some 135-pound kid wanting to fucking just take everybody out. It's not fucking reasonable or believable at motherfucking all. He was a kid that went over to a tent. It was raining. The first thing he said when he sat down was, "This is crazy weather." And then when they asked him who he was like, "I'm a nobody, bro." Which is basically like, "Bro, leave me alone. I'm just chilling." And then they get in a verbal altercation, an altercation that Hunter started. And when Hunter started talking shit, being like, "Well, if you're nobody, you should leave." And then it catches Austin's attention. And Austin walked up 5 motherfucking steps to Karmelo where he was sitting down. And Karmelo warned, this was Austin's choice. To all you fucking people out there, is just like, Karmelo should have left. Listen, bro. No, if you're a fucking man and you're just going to allow any fucking random ass dude to tell you what the fuck to do and you're going to put your fucking your tail between your legs and be like, all right, guy, everybody's your daddy, bro? Motherfucker, you're not telling me what to do. Fuck you. That's what Karmelo said. So we don't know about all those things, and his fucking attorneys are not putting the reasonable doubt into the fucking jury's mind with every single one of the prosecution's witnesses. They missed that motherfucking opportunity. And if he goes down, it's because of that. And the prosecution also set up in their opening statements that they had this fucking video. The video is grainy as fuck. That's a problem. You can't come out in opening statements and say, oh, we got video of this shit, and then you don't have the video. So his defense counsel better turn this motherfucking shit around, dude, to frame this as a choice, because it was. Everybody's talking shit. It doesn't matter. They're both being provocative at that moment. He didn't have any obligation to leave the fucking tent, legally or otherwise. He had a multi-tool, period. Backpack full of track shit. His bus didn't get there. That's why the tents weren't there. They were coming on another bus. His defense better get this shit together, bro. So defense counsel has missed all these opportunities with every single witness to repeat the choice. This is a case about kids being provocative in a high school tent. One kid standing his ground, not allowing himself to be bullied. And a group of other kids just trying to push him out into the rain because they felt that they owned that tent. But the law is clear. In Texas, you can stand your ground. And under Texas law, Karmelo, in that situation, could stand his ground. And it's what he did. And irrespective of the provocation on both sides, Karmelo warned Austin, don't put your hands on me. I don't want physical contact. Any reasonable person in that situation makes that warning to deter another person from lunging towards them. And Austin ignored that warning. And he made a choice to lunge towards Karmelo. And we don't have the evidence to know Karmelo's response. We know that he warned him he had a weapon and he pulled it out. We don't know if the lunge caused Austin to fall on the knife. We don't know if Karmelo shoved it into him. We don't know. And the prosecution is responsible to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that those actions were not only in self-defense, but that response was disproportionate. We don't have that evidence. We rest our case.
Hunter Metcalf is afraid to get on the stand to take up for his brother? I know that's absolutely crazy, but here's why. Hunter Metcalf and Austin Metcalf have been suspended a total of 12 times, that's together, not separately, 12 times during their high school years. The two do also have a violent history with the law. There have been a lot of, street fights and, disruptive behavior and things like that also with the law. The reason why Hunter does not want to go up there is because he's going to have to answer the question that you guys illegally came on school grounds after you were suspended. Yes, both of them were suspended and were not supposed to be on school grounds. And they're also not on the track team. They weren't supposed to be down there in the first place. I'm not saying that the guy deserves to be unalived, but whenever you have two people who have so many priors and then this guy who's never been suspended, never anything, it will help the defense, and that's why he's not getting on the stand. And also, I wonder why he wouldn't get on the stand and at least get up there and cry or something, is because most of the witnesses, all their testimonies were in favor of Karmelo, because a lot of people at this school did not like the Metcalf boys. They were known as troublemakers. Still don't mean they're supposed to have their lives taken. But y'all let me know what y'all think. It's ABG, TBG, and Hype. I'm out.
Secret Service Sam here with a Karmelo Anthony Austin Metcalf update. Here is an email I have obtained, I believe it to be real, Just listen to this. One of the cheerleaders complaining about the twins. Coaches, the other cheerleaders and I have tried to make an effort to stay supportive and spirited throughout the football season. However, the disrespect we feel coming from some of the football players is making it very difficult. Today, after our game against Liberty, some of us cheerleaders in uniform went to Canes. While talking amongst ourselves about the loss, Hunter Metcalf stood up and yelled that my friend and fellow varsity cheerleader is a fat bitch. I don't understand what triggers his rages, but to yell this unprovoked made us all really upset and was incredibly embarrassing for my friend, as everyone is in Canes looked at her and started laughing. We see the Metcalfs act out time and time again, but we trust that there's no repercussions or some sort of consequence, so we stay out of it. But for it now to be directed towards one of the people that shows up to every game to support and cheer them on is astounding to me. After they left Canes, one of the other football players told us that Hunter said his hands were bisexual, implying that he would not only hit guys, but also girls. She is not embarrassed, but genuinely scared, especially after seeing the way he can act on the field. I'm only coming to you because I feel that you should be aware that he is acting like this in public spaces, which is not good for our school's representation and is discouraging us from keeping the cheerleading them on. I'm sorry for even having to come to you about this, but after tonight, it truly feels like it's getting out of hand. I recognize that he may be upset that we lost, but there is no justification for the way he treated my friend tonight. I would also appreciate for my name to stay confidential, as I fear what they would do if they knew.
So you're real cute. Thank you so much for tagging me, Queen. It gave me the opportunity to see it for myself. I really appreciate that. You're a real one. I love you, Queen. I don't even know you, and I love you. It's the genuineness you have for me and the support. Thank you so much, Queen. My feelings so hurt. My lashes already hanging off. I cried it off. Y'all say, Queen, why you like that? I'm a mom of a 17-year-old young man that's well educated. My baby don't bother nobody. But I promise if you fuck with him, you're going to have a problem. He's been doing jujitsu since he was 5. Yep. He didn't mean to do that. He didn't mean to do it. And the prosecution said at the end, we're going to throw in manslaughter just in case. But instead of them motherfuckers to go in for that, they had already had their minds made up. I hadn't even accepted it. I said, they giving manslaughter. At least they won't be that bad. But you motherfuckers had them railroaded from the beginning. When they said wasn't no black jurors on there, I knew. When they came back in 3 hours, I knew they was finna say it. I knew it. I just wanted to hear it for myself. The defense attorney, I sue your punk ass. Because you didn't defend him. You friends with them motherfuckers. So y'all finna go play golf and y'all just to sit up here and then put that baby somewhere he don't belong. You should have put him on the stand so you can humanize him because they had him painted out to be an animal. But you didn't do that. He might get cross-examined. So what? Cross-examine the truth. Y'all railroaded that lady baby, and may God have mercy on y'all soul.
Let's talk about Eddie, Karmelo Anthony's friend, who supposedly did not know him and got on the stand and testified against him, only for us to find out that you knew Karmelo really well. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to target this video towards Eddie parents. So you raised a fucking liar. You raised a child to be deceitful. You raised a child without no morals, intention to have understanding right from wrong. So I just want to know, did you prep your son? Did you coerce your son? Did you receive money for your son not to fucking tell the truth? Allegedly. I'm just asking because I'm a spectator and I'm an investigator and I talk shit. But let me just explain something to you. The reason why I'm not going to sit on here and drag for Eddie, because Eddie has a long life to live, if God say so. So with that being said, he gonna learn what it is to what? Go against your motherfucking friends and do what? Poke your friends in the back. Chucky style. Y'all know what the fuck I want to say. Let me explain something to you. Every dog have his day. People, you have to start teaching your children how to have some type of conscience. And you need to start teaching them children the power of prayer. And what you do to others will come back and do to you. Okay? Karma
is no bitch, and she ain't a motherfucking joke. So that's all I have for Eddie and his family.
I made a video a few days ago about the Carmelo Anthony trial. Well, basically the altercation between him and Austin Metcalf. And the thing is this. All right, for all you people that are getting on my video I made a few days ago, and you're basically saying Carmelo's guilty. And let's just say, for the most part, most of you motherfuckers are just some sick fucks. And you guys are either racist or just dumb as fuck. But I'm not going to say 100%. I'm going to say this. If you think this is what happened, that Austin went up to Carmelo by himself and just was like, hey, man, you got to get up out of here. And just did that. And then Carmelo stabbed him. Yeah, it makes sense why you would think Carmelo should go down. If that's the only context you believe that happened, then yeah, it makes sense to you that, and I would agree with you, damn, that's all that happened. He shouldn't have stabbed him. But that ain't what happened. And the fact that you're omitting everything else makes you a sick piece of shit. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you like this. All right, say this happened. Say me and any three motherfuckers that you know, yourself included, went to a bank. We all know each other. We're going to a bank. And you have no clue what I'm doing. You just assume that what I'm about to do is just withdraw some money. And I decide, without letting you know, that I'm about to go up in that bank. And then right when we all walk in, I pull out a gun and I say, all right, everyone put your fucking hands up. I'm robbing this bitch. What are you doing? Think about that for a second. What are you going to do? Right? Think about that. Are you going to do this? One or two things. Are you going to stand there and be like, yeah, he's robbing this bitch? Or are you going to be like, what the hell, dude? Like, calm down. What are you doing? Think about how you would respond to that. All right? Now, let's say you go with the first route, where you sit there and you go, try to puff up your chest and like you tough as fuck, right? The cops come barreling in there. Are they going to think you are part of the robbery? Or are they going to think that you had nothing to do with it? Now, keep that in your mind for a second, because I'm about to break it down to you. All right. Because then I made it, in that first video I made, I said that, and I'm saying this right now, the more I think about it, they should arrest Hunter Metcalf. All right? Because we know for a fact, Hunter has something to do with what happened between Austin and Carmelo. How do we know? When the shit first went down, what did Hunter say? We. He didn't say Austin. He didn't say I. He said we, meaning him and Austin and a couple other friends were telling Carmelo what to do. They were telling Carmelo what to do. You can't omit that out of what you think how Carmelo's guilty. You can't omit that. You can't say that happened and then leave that out because Austin's the one that put his hands on Carmelo. You can't omit the fact that the rest of them were involved. Why can't you? Because in the state of fucking Texas, the multiple assailant, there is a fucking law. Multiple assailants are the equivalent of a weapon. So the fact, and don't lose me here, the fact that they all approached Carmelo and they all were telling them what to do. All right, now think about that for a second. You have no right to say that. For one, Carmelo ain't got to listen to what thing they fucking say. He can sit where the fuck he wants. He ain't got to listen to what them motherfuckers say. If they tell him to move, he can decide to move, or he can just sit the fuck still. Your problem, that's how I know you guys are some sick fucks. Your first thought is to say this, that Carmelo was the provoker because all he had to do was move. Well, you know what the initial thought should have been? All they had to do is not fucking put their hands on him and tell him what to do. That's all they had to do. All they had to do was go run and tell the coach. But they didn't. They decided that they were the authority and they owned his black body. That's what they acted like. They owned his body and they get to tell it where to be. No, they don't. All right. So who are you to say that Karmelo, sitting down, who never got up, has to look up at Austin because you think it was only Austin involved? But like I said, Hunter already admitted that he was involved too. You think Austin or Carmelo's going to look up at Austin and then see his twin brother and think to himself, all right, if this turns into a fight, I'm sure the guy that looks exactly like him is not going to help him. And I'm sure the other two dudes are not going to help him. So he had every reasonable feeling to believe, all right, they're against me. They are against me. So at the point he had that feeling, and then it escalated from them telling him what to do to one of the attackers putting their hands on him. That's multiple assailants, you stupid fucks. The moment that happened, you can't just omit that, because you can look up the law. One of them has to attack them. Not all of them, just one. Once one of them does, and they were all involved, they're accomplices. The same way you're in that bank, if you're standing with your chest puffed out, and you ain't trying to stop me, right? And even if you ain't trying to stop me, you ain't letting it be known, look, I ain't got nothing to do with this shit. They didn't do that. They didn't say, yo, Hunter, what are you doing? Or Austin, what are you doing, dude? Just calm down. They didn't do that. They stayed there in an aggressive nature, showing Karmelo, we are in solidarity with this boy. We are against you. The fact that they did that makes them all accomplices. That's why it's a big deal. It doesn't matter if they all put their hands on him. One of them did. One of them did, and they were standing there trying to intimidate Karmelo. That makes them multiple assailants. So the fact that that was happening, you can't omit that. And the fact that you are makes you either racist or you're a dumb piece of shit.
That keeps saying that Karmelo Anthony could have walked away. So let's talk about the guy who actually chose not to walk away. George Zimmerman. Zimmerman saw a black teenager, Trayvon Martin, walking home with candy and a drink. He had a car, he had a phone. The dispatcher literally told him, "We don't need you to do that," when he started following Trayvon Martin. He had every chance to stay in his car or to go home and mind his business. Instead, he chased an unarmed kid, started the confrontation, shot him, and then said the magic words, "I was afraid for my life." A jury bought that, and he walked. Now look at Karmelo Anthony, a 17-year-old at a track meet. He stays in a tent where he's told to leave. There's a shove, a scuffle. He pulls a knife one time and says he panicked. No one's saying that's a perfect decision. But suddenly, fear for his life is outrageous, unbelievable, worth 35 years in prison. So when people in my comments are saying, well, he could have just left, he could have de-escalated, I'm like, that logic never applied to George Zimmerman. Zimmerman literally hunted down a child on a sidewalk and walked free in self-defense. Karmelo Anthony gets shoved at a track meet, and the same country acts like self-defense is a fantasy concept. Also in Texas, you have a white kid, Kason Allison, stabbed a Hispanic classmate multiple times in the school bathroom, and the jury knocked it down to a negligent homicide, just 10 years in prison. And then a black kid, Karmelo Anthony, stabs one time in a chaotic confrontation at a track meet and says he was scared, but gets a murder charge and 35 years. The same state, the same "I was scared" defense, but the system clearly doesn't hear those words the same way from black and white defendants.
Was it racism that got Karmelo Anthony convicted of murder, or was it the fact that he stabbed a man in the heart to death that got him convicted of murder? I'm just gonna come right out and say it, as a white girl, it is not the color of your skin that we are tired of. It is your culture. It is the way you behave. And you can call me racist all you want to. I'm not gonna sit here and list off my credentials about how many black people I'm friends with to try to get you to stop calling me racist. We are tired of the loud, violent, ghetto culture that seems to be primarily from people of color. It's not the color of your skin. There are plenty of people who are respectable that are black. It is the way you present yourself. It is the way you treat other people. It's the fact that you have to scream and yell at everybody. It's the fact that you have to start a fight anytime somebody looks at you cross-eyed. This isn't because Karmelo Anthony is black. It's because of the culture he was raised in. The culture he was raised in told him to fight, to be violent, to get in people's faces. He was somewhere he wasn't supposed to be, and it wasn't because he was black, it's because he wasn't part of the team, and he was asked to leave. Instead of leaving, he got in a fight. He chose to pull a knife and stab Austin Metcalf in the heart to death. He wasn't being forced to be there. They didn't go out of their way to antagonize Karmelo Anthony. Karmelo Anthony went out of his way to antagonize Austin Metcalf. And it doesn't matter what words were exchanged. It doesn't matter if Austin was taller than Karmelo. There is nothing to justify pulling a knife and stabbing somebody in the heart. And the way that your community is responding to this conviction is exactly what we are tired of. A black man went up to an innocent white man and punched him in the face because he thought he was on the jury that convicted Karmelo Anthony. There are people who stood outside waiting for Austin Metcalf's family to get out of the courthouse just to tell them that they were glad that Austin died. That is trashy, that is ghetto, that is disgusting, and that is what we are tired of. There are plenty of black people telling you that you're wrong for this, but you don't want to listen to them because you want to keep going with the racist narrative. I'm a white person, and I'm telling you, we are tired of this. Oh, and let's not forget the fact that they're peeing on Austin Metcalf's grave. You guys sit here and cry racism because Karmelo Anthony's life is ruined by being convicted for 35 years in prison. Austin Metcalf's life is ended. Over. He has zero chance to live anymore because of Karmelo Anthony's actions. You know what? This is about racism. It's about the fact that this community is racist against white people. And they had to find a way to make the white person, the white victim, the problem. Because God forbid you take accountability for your culture and your actions.
Karmelo Anthony never actually had a right to self-defense. I mean, technically, he did. He's supposed to, but Black American men, women, and children in this country don't actually have that. They are not protected by the law in that way. They are not even protected by the law when they are innocent children just walking home with their snacks and a hoodie on, or they're playing with a toy at the park. Black Americans, despite what the law says, aren't actually given the opportunity to defend themselves because, again, they aren't even given the opportunity to exist safely. So you can tell me that he had a fair trial, and I'm telling you, no, he fucking didn't. He didn't have a fair life. He doesn't have a fair existence. How the fuck could he have a fair trial in a justice system that is not only upholding anti-blackness and white supremacy, but was built to sustain those institutions? Police agencies appear to be much more likely to characterize a killing as self-defense or justifiable when the victim is a Black male. Overall, fewer than 2% of homicides by civilians are classified as justifiable, but in cases when a Black man was killed by a non-Hispanic white civilian over the last 3 decades, almost 17% were ruled justifiable. Examining data sets from the FBI, reporters found that police label killings of Black males by white people justifiable more than 8 times as often as others, and this racial disparity persists across cities, different ages, different weapons, and different relationships between killer and victim. In contrast, in cases where a Black civilian killed a white person, just 0.8% were ruled justifiable. This boy, this adorable boy, was murdered by police because he had a toy. A grand jury declined to even indict the 2 men responsible for his murder. The United States Department of Justice said that it did not condone the officer's actions, but there was not enough evidence to charge them with a crime. Tamir Rice being gone for doing nothing but being a fucking child wasn't enough evidence for them to charge them with a fucking crime. We just found out that Rick Chow will walk free after chasing Cyrus Carmack Belton out of his store for allegedly stealing a bottle of water. He shot him in the back. He shot this boy, this baby boy. Do not tell me that Karmelo Anthony was given a fair fucking shot, not only in that trial, but at that school and in life. Don't fucking tell me that. I am heartbroken for all of the families involved. I'm heartbroken for a family mourning the loss of their son. I'm heartbroken for the family of Karmelo Anthony and for Karmelo Anthony himself, for all of the reasons I just mentioned. This is a fucking disgrace. Nobody actually wins. Because every time we do this, every time white America, every time the white nationalist, white supremacist justice system and police and government do this, we lose more of our humanity.
In a stand your ground state, while standing his ground. Not one Black face in that jury box, not one peer, not one person who has ever navigated this country in melanated skin. And if you think that doesn't matter, then you haven't been paying attention to the last 400 years of American history, because you don't want to. This is not new. This is the system working exactly as it was designed. The reason this keeps happening, the reason we keep standing at these grave sites, at these courthouses, at these press conferences with tears and signs and hashtags is because Black America doesn't have any collective political or economic power. When you don't control the legislation, when you don't control who sits on the bench and who draws the jury pool, your outrage, however righteous, does not move this racist machine. Liberation has never been given. It has always been taken. And until Black America builds the kind of consolidated economic and political power that makes the cost of this oppression too high to sustain, we will keep seating all white juries. They will keep shooting us in the back or in our beds while we sleep. They will keep saying they feared for their lives after they do it. Black folks, I need you to stop calling it a boycott. We're not boycotting anything. You need to circulate the black dollar forever for our economic power. It's not a boycott. It's a replacement. We will circulate the black dollar. We will build an infrastructure. We will govern ourselves because we have no choice. This pathetic society will never change. They are still raising their children to be just as racist as they are. Racism is a learned behavior. You understand? Anti-Blackness is deeply rooted in every ethnic group, even within our own community. That's what we're dealing with. You want to talk about allyship? Stop trying to infiltrate our organizations and focus on stopping your people, your community, from being racist degenerates. Do the work in your own community. I love you, Black man. I love you, Black woman. Knowledge is power.
Let me unfuck this issue surrounding the sentencing. People online are saying, I don't understand why everyone is mad. And keep your hands to yourself. It's simple. He needs life. How wasn't this murder? The primary issue here is not specifically his guilt or innocence. The issue is why this system keeps finding nuance when sentencing some people and using a sledgehammer when sentencing others. Karmelo was 17 years old when this happened. He was convicted and sentenced to 35 years. But Case and Allison was another Texas teenager in another fatal school stabbing. And he was also charged with murder, but he got convicted of criminally negligent homicide and got 10 years. And Jesus San Miguel, another Texas teenager, another fatal stabbing, he was found guilty of criminally negligent homicide, but he got 10 years of probation and 30 days in jail. So it's not just did Karmelo stab someone. The question is, why does one teenager get treated like a murderer, another like a tragic accident, and another gets sent home on probation? And before somebody performs their little, why does everything have to be about race routine, the U.S. Sentencing Commission found that black males receive longer sentences than white males. So this is not imagination or race baiting or people just being dramatic. It's data. And since it's relevant, a burning cross was found in Grant Park in Chicago today, in broad daylight. So spare me the fairy tale about how racism is over and people are overreacting. And the cowards that burned that cross, they didn't stand there proudly. They didn't make some brave public argument. They lit the cross and ran, because that's what these people are. They're fucking cowards. They want the intimidation of racism without the accountability of being racist. And that's the country this Karmelo conversation is happening in. So when people look at a 35-year sentence and compare it to a white teenager who got a lesser conviction and lighter punishment for the same crime and say something is wrong here, stop pretending like you need a law degree to understand the point. The point is fairness. The point is consistency. The point is that justice and sentencing should not come with an adjustment based on race. Fair sentencing should not be a partisan issue. It should not be controversial to say that two kids who commit comparable crimes should face comparable consequences. And if your response to that is anger, maybe you should ask yourself why fairness pisses you off so much. And remember, I'm not the dark left. Together, we're the dark left.
Real quick, these two guys right here. Do we know? Do we all know these guys? No, we don't know these guys. And I kind of figured that would be your answer, that you didn't know who these guys is. And how could you know who these guys are? Because there was very little coverage on these two guys. Yeah, the more I dig, the less I find. But I wanted to enlighten you guys on who these two guys were. This is Alec Ray Adamson, 17, and this is Mason Schiller, 18. And on February 3rd, 2023, they fatally shot and killed 19-year-old David Pleasant at a playground in Little Elm, Texas. Yeah. As David exited the car, running, trying to get away from these two guys. Alec gets out of his car, chases him down, shoots him in the back of his head, leaving him to die in that playground. He gets back in his car, takes the police on a high-speed chase, crashes the car, jumps out the car, taking the police on a foot pursuit. And you would think, well, with all that said and done, Texas being the state that Texas is, they're somewhere locked up. But no, they're not. The judge handed down a 4-year sentence for the death of David Pleasant. 2 years credited to their sentence for the time they spent in the county. So they only spent 2 years in a penitentiary. So how can two very similar cases, the Karmelo Anthony case and this case, play out in two very different outcomes?
Hey, and y'all think that this Karmelo and Metcalf against Metcalf? Listen, that dude was scared, bro. He seen two big corn-fed white boys, the Metcalf brothers, and he got scared. He pulled out that knife because he knew he was going to get his fucking ass whooped. That's like all y'all black folks are scared, man. Y'all can't go one-on-one. Y'all can't go head up. Y'all got to come with 20, 30 y'all you know what I mean? Y'all got power in numbers. But you know what? There's so many more white folks than there is y'all. And listen, we know how to hunt. We know how to fish. We know how to build shit. Y'all know how to fucking rely on the government. Y'all can't do shit without the government. Y'all need food. Y'all need housing. Guess what? Us white boys provide our own house, provide our own food. We don't need the government. So y'all talk about y'all superior, this, that, the other. Let's see when the government shuts down, who prevails, who stands out on top. I guarantee it ain't gonna be y'all. Y'all can't survive without Jordan's, Chargers, fucking food stamps, and goddamn Section 8. Listen, when it comes down, y'all ain't gonna stand a chance, brother.
White people invented race to justify their oppression of the African people and their descendants, as well as to justify their mistreatment of the indigenous American tribes. So racism is always the aggressor. Race-based violence starts and ends with white people. Entirely different is bias. It's possible for a black person to be biased against a white person. It's defensive bias, though, because again, white people started and continued it to present day. So a black person not liking a white person or not trusting a white person on the basis that they're white is not racism. It's defensive bias based on 400 years of dehumanization and history and trauma that has not been atoned for. No reparations have been made. No apologies have been given by the majority of white people. Most white people will tell you, I didn't do it, so I'm not responsible. I've never been racist to a black person. Why do they hate me on the basis of my skin color? That's racist. No, that's smart. Every time black people have tried to create their own communities, white people have come in and ruined it and destroyed it. We've stolen everything they've ever tried to build for themselves. Black creativity and culture is the most plagiarized and least accredited phenomenon in the world. To this day, everyone steals from the black community and their creativity and their artists. It's not TikTok slang, it's AAVE, it's Ebonics. You look stupid. It's not yours. It's not ours, it's theirs. It's not ours, it's theirs.
I'm going to say this as clear as I can to white people. We are here because too many people that look like me since 1619 have stood by in your privilege and haven't done anything, said anything, and you have stayed in your comfort zone. When black people were kidnapped and died on the ships and thrown in the ocean, when they were lynched from trees, when they were passed out in somebody's will as property, when fetuses were ripped out of black mothers and babies were used for alligator bait, when they were beaten and whipped and chained and shackled, white people goes, doesn't affect me. I don't care. Nothing to see here. Let's go play baseball. when Black Wall Street was burnt down, when Native Americans were murdered and given blankets with smallpox, Wounded Knee, the Middle Passage, the Trail of Tears. Nothing to see here. My privilege will keep me safe. I'm not going to say anything. When black people couldn't vote for 200 years, when Asians were in internment camps and thousands died, nothing to see here. Doesn't affect me. And you had the same thing on January 6th, where a white supremacist didn't like the results of an election, so his white trash KKK base with their white hoods on beat police officers. And this country overlooked that. And him being a rapist and a convicted felon and defending child molesters. And you said, that's my guy because he's white.
You're black and you're genuinely on this app talking about, oh, Karmelo is guilty and da-da-da-da-da, I don't care about race, da-da-da, you're a coon. They literally didn't have to show you no fucking evidence for you to go against your own people. None. He say, she say. That's all we've heard so far is he say, she say. We don't even know what happened. And mind you, there's a whole video they're not showing us for a reason. So it's just really crazy. People like that really have to go in our community. Y'all need shunned. Y'all need shamed every time y'all walk out the motherfucking house. We just need to gather a circle around you niggas and just point and fucking laugh because you're a fucking joke. Genuinely. And I made a video on this a few months ago, and here it is, true again. Motherfuckers didn't have to show you an ounce of actual evidence for you to go against your own fucking people. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. I would never in life believe the side of white people who, mind you, have the video and won't release it on fucking purpose than my own people. Are y'all fucking stupid?
Anthony sentenced to 35 years in prison after being found guilty of murder. TMZ posts this picture of him going to prison, and it doesn't take long to see America's racism show up. The very first comment I read is, he won't be going to other people's tent no more. I respond by saying, well, Austin won't be putting his hands on other people's children anymore. Now, me personally, I don't want to go low. I love compassion and empathy. But if you want to go low, I will meet you in the trenches. Comments, general population's going to love you, laughing. I wonder if he's pregnant yet. I read other comments talking about he's not going to get chitlins anymore. He's not going to get fried chicken and watermelon. Your typical, stereotypical racism in America. I believe what happened was a tragedy. 2 young men lost their life that day. But I still stand on the fact that Karmelo Anthony did not stand a chance because of his race. And yes, racism played a huge part in it. The United States Constitution gives us a right to a speedy trial to be judged by a jury of our peers. Well, Karmelo Anthony had an all-white jury, and they dismissed every black juror. Why does that matter? Because you have to understand the historical context of our criminal justice system. The 13th Amendment was the abolishment of slavery, except when punishment for a crime, meaning that crime became the legalized loophole for slavery. Slavery can be legal as long as we label people criminal. So for young black defendants in the United States of America, they are not afforded the presumption of innocence. Their fear is never reasonable. Karmelo Anthony's experience is not worthy of validation. His story not to be believed. In fact, every action that Karmelo Anthony took was viewed through the lens of suspicion because his very existence is suspicious to racist white America. Why did Karmelo Anthony carry a knife? Why didn't he just get up and walk away? Why was he in other people's tent? Didn't ask the questions like, why did Austin Metcalf greet him with hostility? Why didn't Austin Metcalf extend grace and kindness to him? Why didn't he offer him some water or a Gatorade and an opportunity for refuge to get out of the rain? Why did Austin Metcalf find it necessary to feel like he was the authority, that he was the gatekeeper of a tent? Why didn't he go to the authorities, to a coach? And most importantly, why didn't Austin Metcalf keep his hands to himself? Why did he put his hands on other people's children? Why did he believe that he could act with impunity? Why did he think that he was entitled to tell other people what to do? Again, Karmelo Anthony never stood a chance. Not then and not today. Every single one of those eyewitnesses were very good friends of Austin Metcalf. Every single one of them testified that Austin Metcalf is our leader. He is always protecting us, was the exact words that they testified. Protecting you from what? Why does Austin Metcalf need to protect you? He's your peer. He is not your parent. He is not an authority figure in your life unless you've made him one. Unless you've made him feel empowered and entitled to do exactly what he did to Karmelo Anthony that day. Completely understand why Karmelo Anthony would have been in such fear. Knowing the historical context of what it's like to be black in America, understanding our criminal justice system, and also seeing the crowd that he was dealing with on that day. Why did the defense team not put him on the stand? You don't put defendants on the stand when they can self-incriminate. We know that he did it. We know that he did it. He admitted to doing it. But let us humanize him and see the why, the motive as to why he did it. Understand that it was a split-second decision, that white America always gets deference in those situations. The Daniel Pennies, the police brutality cases in which cops are always given deference in split-second decisions in which they fear for their life. That same deference wasn't given to Karmelo Anthony. Not like he had a lengthy criminal record that the prosecution could have exposed or used against him. He was a straight A student. He was a son. He was a teammate. He was a friend. Biggest reason why I say you should not have convicted of murder is because you need malicious intent to prove murder. The element of malice, a forethought malice, meaning that he went there with the intent to kill somebody or that he had reckless disregard for human life. There was one stab. It was probably a get up off of me stab. He didn't stab him multiple times like a crime of passion. He didn't stab any of the other kids underneath that tent. The very most, they could have said manslaughter, but I still believed he was innocent because he was not the aggressor. He did not strike Austin first. Just like we saw in South Carolina when the store owner, Rick Chow, chased Cyrus down, the 14-year-old boy, 130 yards and shot him in the back and then was found not guilty. Kyle Rittenhouse went across state lines with an assault rifle to a place that we know had heightened emotions and tension. Karmelo Anthony been any one of them, he would have been an American hero invited to the White House.
Austin Metcalf, Karmelo Anthony situation. The case is over. Karmelo was sentenced to M, and he's got 35 years with the possibility of parole after he serves half his sentence. He is appealing it, but he was sentenced to 35 years. And this is a ton of bullshit because the goalposts keep moving for black folks. And now people who like to pretend that they're not racist are pretending to be confused about what constitutes basic self-defense. Karmelo Anthony was chilling with a homie under that other team's tent, right? But was invited by the homie, and they are sitting there having a conversation, minding their own goddamn business. Karmelo Anthony is roughly 160 pounds. And then Austin Metcalf and his brothers, or whoever the hell he was with, rolled up on Karmelo Anthony, telling him he needs to leave the tent. Now, let's stop there for a second, because had it been me and my homies in high school and we're chilling and some guy walks up to us, right, starting shit, basically saying, you need to leave, we would have been like, fuck you. And if you try to move me, I will fuck you up. And let's never mind high school for a second. I'm that way now. Now, earlier I mentioned Karmelo Anthony was roughly 160 pounds. He's like 5'7". And then you got these dudes that are like 6'1", 6'2", 215 pounds. I wrestled where weight matters. That is a big fucking deal. You don't send the 165-pound guy to go wrestle the 215 guy unless he's just this extraordinary monster. But really, you don't do that. So we've got a big weight difference. And then Austin Metcalf goes up and shoves or pushes Karmelo Anthony. So let's stop right there, because some of y'all been eating lead paint y'all whole life, and y'all gonna get confused at this point. So let's stop right there. That is assault. And once you assault somebody, what happens afterwards in response to your assault is self-defense. Get it? Now here's what's even more fucked up. Karmelo had gave him a warning. We're acting like this is a threat, but he gave him a warning. He said, touch me and you're going to find out what happens. That's not a threat. That is a warning. And because Austin Metcalf is a goddamn bully, he decided he was going to put his hands on Karmelo despite the warnings. So he fucked around and found out. And why are we acting confused about this? I can tell you now that half of the people that are saying this is not self-defense are the same people that if I walked up and pushed them right now, they would pull out some kind of lethal weapon on my big ass, especially if there's at least a 50-pound weight difference. So quit playing dumb. Had Austin Metcalf minded his own business and kept his hands to his goddamn self, he'd be walking around right now. But he had the spirit of Billy Badass, and he fucked around and found out.
That is a dangerous Negro on this plantation. Sell him down the river or give him a good whipping and stop him from being curious about serious things. Keep him in the silly mode. That is the category that black people are always supposed to be in, the silly mode, the destructive mode. Don't let them think about anything serious, because then they become a danger.
If this breakdown gave you something to think about, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned for another episode of What is Going On Media, where we make the complicated clear.